Terence Crawford retains his WBC and WBO super lightweight, or light welterweight if you prefer, world titles with a 10th round stoppage over Felix Diaz. Diaz's corner retired him at the end of the 10th. They thought he'd had enough. Diaz actually trained by Yoel Diaz, who was the former trainer of Timothy Bradley. Some of you guys may recall. He showed compassion and mercy on his own fighter and said, "Nah, man, you've had enough tonight." Now, Terence Crawford fights are almost getting routine at this point because there's very few people that can actually be competitive with Terence Crawford. It's been a long time, actually, quite a while since somebody's been seriously competitive with him. A lot of people were hoping and even expecting that the Victor Postal fight would be very competitive, but it wasn't. He shot Victor Postal out, dropped him once or twice, I believe, in that fight, or certainly hurt him off the top of my head, from what I recall. So when was the last time he was actually in a really competitive fight? It's, been a long time. There have been certain fights he's had that there were a few rounds in which there was competitive action. But for the most part, Crawford dominates everybody he gets in the ring with. The good thing about him, though, is unlike, for example, Floyd Mayweather or many other fighters out there, he don't just dominate, he closes the show. He's not content to go 12 rounds. He likes to hurt guys and put them away when he can. Terence Crawford also is not untouchable defensively. And that's because he's so active offensively. He was maybe untouchable in the Victor Postal fight, but in most fights, he's more aggressive than that. And that leads him to get caught with shots. And he was caught here against Felix Diaz with several decent shots throughout the fight. Diaz was applying a lot of pressure. He was very aggressive. And Diaz may be an underrated fighter. But Terence Crawford was the better guy on the outside. He was taller, rangier, quicker, more skilled, can switch from southpaw to orthodox. Actually, Diaz can do that a little bit too, but nowhere near as good as Terence Crawford. And yeah, he just picked him apart, and he was kind of, as I say, a routine Terence Crawford title defense at this point. We want to see him tested. We want to see him maybe step up to 147 pounds after unifying with Julius Indongo, if he can beat Indongo, because there's no such thing as foregone conclusions at world level boxing. We may say that there is, but at the end of the day, that's what upsets are all about. Upsets happen in boxing. Julius Indongo has 2 belts. Terence Crawford has 2 belts. Let's make that fight and see who's the best. I believe Crawford will win, but you never know until the two guys actually get it on. So after the fight, Terence Crawford did actually call out Julius Indongo. He also called out Pacquiao, and he called out Thurman. He said he's willing to move up to 147 pounds and fight whoever. You got to like that about Bud Crawford. You got to like the fact that he's willing to not only fight anybody in his own division, but he's calling out at least one of the top dogs in the division above. Or 2 of the top dogs, actually. Pacquiao is still 147 pounds. He holds the WBO belt in that weight class. So, yeah, he called out 2 of the top dogs at 147 and the other top dog at 140. Not many fighters in the world of boxing are doing that right now. Calling out not only the top guys in their own division, but the top guys in the division above. Not many champions are doing that kind of thing. So, much respect to Terence Crawford. A good performance. A routine win, really. Maybe it sounds kind of disrespectful or condescending to be saying that about Crawford, and I should be saying it was spectacular or whatever, but I don't know, it's just got to the point where he's so dominant that you kind of expect him to do these kind of things and, bash people around and whatnot, and win without too much hassle. So Felix Diaz tried hard. It was a spirited performance, but he was just outgunned and outskilled in the fight. So out of the 3 people that Terence Crawford called out, Manny Pacquiao, Thurman, and Julius Indongo, who would you like to see him fight next, if you could choose? A lot of people will say Indongo, let's have a unified champion at 140. He would be the only undisputed champion. He's already unified champion. He would be the only undisputed champion in boxing at the moment if he was able to unify with Indongo before, let's say, Golovkin, if he beats Canelo, is able to unify with Billy Joe Saunders. So, yeah, that's a potential there for Crawford to really stand out from the crowd and be the only undisputed champion in boxing at the moment, if he beats Indongo. Or he could go another route, fight Pacquiao. He really likes that fight. Both him and Pacquiao are Bob Arum top-ranked fighters. So if the Pacquiao side of the equation won it, the fight can happen. At the moment, it seems as though Pacquiao and his team are not too keen on it. Bob Arum seems keen on it, but Pacquiao and his advisor, Michael Conks, they seem to want to be going in a different direction. Or maybe they're just warming up for the Crawford fight later on in the year. Pacquiao's fighting Jeff Horn. We'll see how that one goes. Hopefully after that. And, you know, Pacquiao's a warrior. He's been around for a long time, but I'm sure he knows that he's on his last roll of the dice. So he's trying to maximize his income during this last phase of his boxing career. So, you know, I'd like to see Crawford-Pacquiao as a passing of the torch fight. And I would definitely love to see Crawford step up to 147. I think there is so much good fights that can be made at 147 for Terence Crawford. Besides the Pacquiao fight. Besides the Pacquiao fight, Keith Thurman fight would be great. You know, put him in there with the winner of Brook versus Errol Spence. People have been talking about Errol Spence versus Terence Crawford for, you know, a while now. And that's a fight I would certainly love to see. I expect Errol Spence to defeat Kell Brook. I don't think that's going to be an easy fight for Errol Spence in the slightest. I think that's a very, very tough fight for him. But I think Errol Spence is going to come through. You know, it all remains to be seen at the end of the day. You can't count your chickens before they hatch. Can't count your eggs, you know. Count your chickens, eggs, whatever. You know the metaphor I'm talking about. So we'll see how the welterweight picture unfolds over the next few months. We'll see how the light welterweight picture unfolds. But these are exciting times. The welterweight division has always been a strong division historically in boxing. And if Crawford was to step up to 147, wow. Wow, it really would be maybe a golden era again for the welterweight division. So let me know what you felt about Terence Crawford's performance against Felix Diaz. Who would you like to see him fight next? Indongo, Pacquiao, Keith Thurman, or maybe somebody else from a stylistic point of view? Errol Spence? Kell Brook? If Kell Brook, you know, wins that fight, who else you got there? Sean Porter? You got Danny Garcia still floating around? Tim Bradley still floating around? That's a potential fight, even though I believe Bradley and Crawford are very good friends, so unlikely to fight. Let me know what you think anyway, people. Drop your comments in the comment section below. It's happening. I'm out.